sort of the way that Star Wars has kind of traced the real world of politics that we kind of deal with on an everyday basis. Can you kind of walk us through this timeline? Because it's a really cool point, and it leads to something that I find incredibly disturbing that we'll get to in a moment.
Sure. So Star Wars has always been and it will always be political. You can't really take out the context of the world in which a movie or a book or any piece of art is made from the piece itself. And the story of the 70s and the 80s, for the most part, was America's role in the world. It was post-Vietnam and it was the Cold War. That was the conversation, and that sort of leaked into the earlier original trilogy movies in various different ways. And then in the 2000s with the prequels, you had the war on terror and the slippery slope of war. And we were talking about how democracies fall apart, executive power, all those sorts of themes that were in those movies and were in politics at the time. And today, the politics of the time, the conversation is driven by the divide, the massive gulf between people in this country and really around the world in various different societies and in politics. We're very divided. And Star Wars is looking like it's going to be moving in that direction in terms of their commentary and their story with The Last Jedi. I saw this in the trailer that they aired about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I wrote up in the Washington Examiner for Young Voices and Beltway Banthas about that piece.
What was it about the trailer that caught your eye and made you believe that that's the case?
The Jedi must end, says Luke Skywalker. At the end of that trailer, who would expect Luke Skywalker, the hero of the original Star Wars movies, to declare that the Jedi Order must no longer be a thing, and that Rey, his presumed pupil, is not searching just for the light, but the dark, but also the balance of the Force. In the prequel trilogy, we heard this sort of offhand thing about a prophecy of someone who would bring balance to the Force. It was largely presumed to be Anakin Skywalker, who became Darth Vader. And that didn't really work out, and the Jedi were never really committed to a balance. They were just committed to destroying the dark side. And so what we have now is a scenario where they might actually be looking for a gray area between these two gulfs. And we should be asking ourselves why. What does that say about our culture? And also, what does that say about the characters in Star Wars and what they're going through today?
I mean, and those are really important and interesting questions as you kind of see how it's reflected in, real life is reflected in the Star Wars story. However, I'm a little nervous just from a fan perspective that we're trying to find gray areas between, the Empire, the light and the dark. It's like there shouldn't be a gray area. It's Star Wars. Like that is, it's the ultimate battle there. And if we get like a no labels version of some party in Star Wars, I'm going to go crazy.
Oh yeah, that's going to suck.
Yeah, and I think that they're moving in a direction where you're going to see that. A lot of the extra materials, like the books and the TV shows, are really hinting towards a pursuit of a new kind of Force user that uses the light and the dark and understands a true balance. And I think it's cool as a Star Wars fan because I think the white robes versus the black robes can only go so far. They cannot keep this thing going forever, so we need something else. And I don't think the Force is as simple as black and white. But as fans and as commenters of the news and viewers of cultural events, like, we see that having good and evil is important. And Star Wars is appealing for that exact purpose. If you want moral relativism, look to Star Trek.